Hello, I'm Scott Sandler, your instructor, and we have with us
Nick.
And we have with us Haley and Nick are here, and this is my friend Peter.
Hello.
And he's helping us out. And today we're going to be talking about the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. We were going to do some T.S. Eliot and some Robert Frost, but it felt like a lot to do in one session. So we'll do the Prufrock today, and then hopefully I can get some takers maybe for Friday, and we can try this out again and do some Robert Frost. We were going to wait on some people, but maybe we'll just get started, and then as people come up, we'll allow them to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with a little background. So I've got a little PowerPoint, so I'll bring that up. Okay. So we've been talking a little bit about realism in our class, and we talked about Paul's cases having to do with psychological realism. And so Ezra Pound is saying that for T.S. Eliot, there is psychological realism in here, but he says it's in a highly subjective or introspective vein. Mr. Eliot gives us the reactions of an individual to a situation for which, to a large extent, his own character is responsible. You'll see a lot of this is in his head, right? This is all about the anxieties, the fears that Prufrock has, how he imagines people are reacting to him. And so a lot of this is looking at the interior world of Prufrock.
Definitely very introspective. When I read that was my first feeling about this. It's totally about himself.
That's right. And have you ever had that experience where you just can't get out of your own head and you wish you could? Prufrock is one of those people. So it's a real, there's a lot of psychological complexity going on in this piece. He's also a modernist. Usually when people think of this poem, they look at it within the school of modernism. So I'm going to bring that up. A lot of modernist writing is in reaction to war. And actually, when we look at this slide, we've kind of hopscotched around a little bit. Hi, come on, sit. We've hopscotched around a little bit because we started with, last week looking at Stephen Crane and the Civil War and Ambrose Bierce and looking at the impact of war on the characters in those stories. And Eliot's piece was written just a year before World War I, but it's got a lot of the same features that we see here. So the impact of war on literature, a lot of it is work where you get feelings of doubt, anxiety, and instability. And I think that you get that in some of the pieces that we've already read, and certainly you get that in Prufrock, right? He is ridden with anxiety, right, and doubt. A lot of graphic detail, right, and we'll see that in the works that you've just read last week, but you also get that from T.S. Eliot. Breaches of decorum, right, ways that you're supposed to act in a civil kind of way, and a lot of the works of realism and also modernism work against that. It's a reaction against like a kind of romanticized or idealized view of the world. A lot of experimentation because a lot of the characters feel fragmented, and so you're getting a lot of that in both the works we've read and clearly in Prufrock. A sense of alienation, dislocation. I think you got that heavily in Paul's case, right? And you get that here. Someone who, I think loneliness is a key theme in here. Loneliness, insecurity, self-consciousness, all the feelings of dislocation, all of that is in the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And then this idea of kind of a stripped down approach to literature happens as a result of the war and moving more towards realism. When we think of modernism, it's about taking some of the conventional techniques of writing or of describing and trying to bring in ways of looking at the world that challenge that. A lot of experimenting with syntax, chronology, and you get a lot of that in proof-rock. Now, just to go to your essay that's coming up, so I added something. Consider one particular work and explain in what way it fits or deviates from the literary traditions of regionalism, local color, realism, and regionalism is kind of under the umbrella of realism. Regionalism is looking at reality within a particular culture, right? I think Kate Chopin might work well as an example of that. Trying to capture a particular voice, a particular way of being in the world, but it's trying to capture what it's like within a particular region. That's regionalism. Naturalism, I think Jack London is a great illustration of naturalism. And so we can talk more about that. I'll probably post something more on these terms, and there is a PowerPoint up there. And then now modernism, I'm going to add that to the mix. So you're looking at one of the pieces, and within your discussion, look at characteristics of that literary tradition. So you might have to do some research here to find out more about the tradition that you're interested in. I think it's a good idea to start with a text that you think is going to sustain your interest, right? Rather than saying, I want to focus on something on this category, look at the piece. Just pick one of the pieces that really speaks to you and think, where would this fit? And what are the characteristics that make me say that? Develop your discussion within a close reading of the text. So I just bring this up here because I added modernism, if you wanted to tackle that. Okay, so I think I want to start with the poem. Okay, so let me see if I can, oops. So it's called The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. So I want to, oops, how do I write in this? Okay. When you think of a love song, what comes to your mind? And by the way, 2 people joined us. You want to say your names?
Oh yeah, Jacob.
And Arissa.
Jacob, and we have 2 Jacobs.
Oh yeah.
Are you Baxter? Or?
Yeah, I'm Baxter.
Okay, and Arissa. So what do you think of when you think of a love song?
Emotion.
Emotional.
Explicit feelings.
It's interesting that you say explicit feelings because there is a question that he wants to ask, and he's not very explicit about what that question
Yeah,
is.
so when I found it, this wasn't like so. It was kind of lost with this piece.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't very explicit. It was a lot of implied.
Mm-hmm. What else do you think about?
Something that like beautifully pays tribute or like homage to a person.
Beautiful tribute or homage to somebody. What else do you think about? I think about something like expressing warm feelings,
Yeah.
some kind of warmth,
Not this piece.
which would not be this piece,
Yeah.
Not this piece.
right?
Even more direct.
Yeah.
Direct. So that goes back to explicit, right? Let's put that up here. Okay. Direct, explicit feelings. I love you. Being very direct. Right? What else comes to mind?
Not necessarily insulting either.
Right? Okay, so yeah, not insulting. So we're gonna define a love song by saying what it's not.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know, when I think of love, it's a pretty heavy emotion.
Uh-huh.
And this piece was definitely very heavy. I wouldn't say that it was necessarily a happy love song. It was definitely more of the negative side the blood, that sort of
Yeah.
that
When-
yearning and that heartbreak.
Okay, yearning, heartbreak. Oops, I've got to learn how to spell. Anything else, you guys? So we could talk about where do we see that yearning in here. So what else? Anything else? A love song. Any last thing come to mind? This is a good list. So maybe as we go through this piece, let's look at the emotions within the piece. Let's look at where he's direct or explicit and where he's not. Okay? Let's look at the yearning that Nick was talking about. And in many ways, it doesn't feel like a love song, right? We were talking about warmth. There's not a lot of warmth in here, right? In fact, we said earlier, he's so inside his own head that I would imagine that he would have trouble connecting with anyone, right? So I think of a love song as wanting to connect, human connection. So I think he wants to. I don't think he knows how to. I think he both wants to and he doesn't want to, right? And we might also think about the humor in this title, right? Is it ironic?
It's very
The
ironic.
love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. J. Alfred Prufrock is not a name like Don Juan,
No.
right? J. Alfred. Sounds like an accountant. J. Alfred Prufrock. Let's look at the disparity within the experiences that are actually in this poem and our own understanding of love. Does that sound good? So I think now this is gonna be the shocker here. You're gonna see you guys. Oh,
Not
it's
ready.
okay. You're not ready?
No.
No, you'll be ready. Let's
There's
see.
one view.
Where? Okay, wait. How do I? Hold on, everybody.
Green.
The green at the top. You are screen sharing. I want to stop that. And there we are. Hi,
Hair's a mess.
everybody. Your hair's a mess. I'm trying to hide my weight.
I'm so pale.
That's okay. Everyone has that glare. Let's start reading it. Let's start reading about it and talking about it. Now, I realize like my head's going to turn towards you and away from them.
Mhm.
So I'll try to, keep going back to the camera. But there is a little epigram at the very beginning, epigraph at the very beginning, and I'm wondering if someone could read it, the English. You don't have to read the original language.
I can go ahead and read it.
Go ahead.
First off, I would just like to say that if you were starting something that was romantic, I don't know if you'd take an excerpt
From
from
Inferno.
Dante's Inferno.
Well,
Kinda
Dante's Inferno is a kind of hell, and he's comparing his own kind of hell
to that, yeah.
to
It's
that.
definitely an inner hell that he's experienced. So, if I thought that my reply would be to one who would never ever return to the world, this flame would stay without further movement. But since none has ever returned alive from its death, if what I hear is true, I answer you without fear of infamy.
Okay. Well, what's that about? Before you even get to read the poem, what are the messages in there? So you're right. It's from Dante, and here it's Dante talking to one of the characters from the Eighth Circle of Hell, and asking him to share, his story. And he says, well, if I knew that others would hear it, I would never tell this to you, right? He says, if I thought that my reply would be to one who would ever return to this world, this flame would stay without further movement. But since none has ever returned from this depth, from this kind of hell, I can answer you without fear. Why are we kicking it off this way?
I think that's a good introduction to where he's at, where Proof Rock is.
Okay.
He's in his own. He's so trapped in like these negative feelings he has for himself that he doesn't know if he can ever escape his own hell. He's in that own gate himself. That own gate realm.
Okay.
I love him.
Yeah, so he's kind of gated in his own hell. But also, this poem is him sharing things about himself where it forces him to be very vulnerable to share these feelings. And if I knew that this was going to get out in the world, I would never tell you. But here, because I know that it's not going to go anywhere, I will tell you, right? And the you could be, you the reader. But there's a lot about vulnerability in this poem and about fear of vulnerability. And so we get that fear of vulnerability right from this quote from Dante. So we're going to start reading it. And what I thought we'll do is we'll kind of read a stanza, stop, talk about that stanza. Who wants to read?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Let us go, then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights and one-night cheap hotels. The end of the stanza, or it goes down to
Keep going.
and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells, streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit.
Okay, let's stop there. Okay. So, let us go then, you and I. Does this sound like someone who's really excited about going?
No.
Even that word then, let us go then. I guess we're going to do this thing, right? Let us go then, you and I. Who's the you?
The reader.
Could be the reader, right? Or it could be someone that he has in mind.
A
Huh?
friend.
Maybe a friend. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. So what do you make of that? Like a patient etherized upon a table.
Someone who's spread out and vulnerable. They're there for someone to really work on and expose their.
Someone's like doped up. And
Okay. So wait, we have vulnerable, right? Sprawled out, right? And your defenses are down.
Defenseless. There we go.
And here we have kind of numb, doped up.
Yeah, like someone that's like numb and like their tongue is like hanging out of the corner of their mouth. Like
Right.
disgusting.
And not, it seems like in some ways there's this desire to go out, but also a desire to stay in, like a desire for inactivity, right? Because later he's going to use that image of the yellow fog like a cat, right? Like I wish I could just stay put like that yellow fog cat, right? Nuzzle up in my home, but here we're out, right? Let us go then, you and I, like a patient, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table, let us go through certain half-deserted streets. Sound like a good time?
No.
Okay, how is this place being described? Half-deserted.
Like empty. Like half deserted, I think of like it's not like a party life. It sounds like more there's like homeless people who don't have like a place to stay, so they're just kind of like sitting in the corner, and it's half deserted, like half empty kind of thing. More
Sounds sad.
Yeah.
Okay, does it sound sad to you guys? And look at how he framed it. We didn't say like, oh, it's half full.
Mm-hmm.
We could have, it's half deserted. That's the way he sees it,
Pessimistic.
right? Yeah, so we're seeing the world. Look at the subjective detail because we're in his head and we're seeing the details through his head. He's both the speaker of the poem, but the focalizer, the one through whose eyes we're seeing these things unfold, right? streets that follow like a tedious argument, right? So if it's tedious, like a tedious argument, I think of an argument that's kind of not going anywhere. I think of an argument where there's a lot of repetition. I think of an argument where I would want to say, okay, so let's move on from this, right? It's like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Now remember, earlier we said a love song is more explicit. Here, there's an overwhelming question, and we keep coming back to that question. But there's a lot left unsaid here about what is that question. We can kind of grapple with it at the end if we want, but it feels like there's a purpose here, right? Purpose. I'm leaving this house. I'm going through all these things to ask this question that never really gets asked, right? Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. And that's that sing-songy chorus that we come back to over and over, right? So what do you make of that part? In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. That refrain.
Wasn't Michelangelo like one of he was a famous painter, right? And then I think one of them made a sculpture named Michelangelo, and it was like very like handsome, something like that.
Okay.
I believe. I don't know. I'm not totally sure. But
Right?
yeah.
So you've got the right Michelangelo.
All right. Cool.
But there's like a sing-songy quality to it. It feels like the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo, talking about something very serious, but we're handling it in a kind of a trivial way. Like, look, Prufrock is afraid of judgment, of people judging him, but if you'll notice throughout the piece, he's judging other people, right? And one reason why he's judging other people is it's a defense mechanism. Like, why should I even listen to them? They're kind of superficial. Why should I listen to them? They're stupid. They're not perfect, right? So, and this idea of the women coming and going, there's a lot in this piece about sexuality and about maybe him wanting to connect with women. And we'll see at the very end of the poem, if you've already read it, the kind of women that he ends up connecting with, right? And I'm thinking about the mermaids, right? That's the women that don't exist, right? The women that are part of fantasy and story, right? So let's keep reading. The Yellow Fog. Haley, you want to take it?
Sure. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes, the yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once upon the house and fell asleep.
Good. Let's stop there. What are you guys getting from this section? And I'm sorry, I keep thinking my back is turned towards you, and it is. What's going on in this section?
I know the word's it's not personification when you give something animal qualities.
Yeah, it is.
Is it personification?
Dude, so on.
Okay, I didn't know if it was like animal monification, but yeah. So the yellow fog is given the qualities of cat.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow is the color that represents like sickliness. So it's the sick cat.
He changes it to, he says fog, and then he changes it to smoke.
Yeah, exactly. And I also thought October. I thought this soft October night was important because that gives you the sense of like warm, not warmth, but like a cat on an October night. You almost think of like like a fireplace, a nice
Mhm.
nice setting.
Very cozy.
Very cozy, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's this sick fog, it's this sick essence that's sort of just catting around and I don't know, very feline.
Very feline. I like that. So a lot of good reading here, looking at the difference between fog and smoke, right? And you could think about what obscures, what makes things not exactly transparent, but it's also trying to create that. I like that idea of yellow as being kind of sickly, but I also see this idea of coziness, right? I'm going out, but I would kind of rather stay in the house like a cat, curled up. And then I don't know if you hear it, and you'll tell me if you do, but there is kind of a sensuality to this section as well. What is it? The muzzle on the window pane, the licking its tongues into the corner of evening, the lingering. There's something kind of sensual going on here as well. And maybe let's look at it, but these feelings of sensuality and sexuality is kind of throughout this piece as well. Okay. And indeed, there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and a time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions and 100 visions and revisions before the taking of the tea.
Definitely the three lines that stand out to me: to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet.
Mm-hmm.
He's putting up that, you brought up him judging other people, but because they're critical of him, he doesn't want to be judged.
So this is that
wall,
that
mask.
kind of guardedness, trying to mask yourself. Earlier you were talking about the patient etherized, being kind of vulnerable, laying out there. That's how he feels. So this idea, I want to prepare myself.
So I don't have to just show my true self.
So I don't have to, does that sound like a love song?
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Let me mask who I really am so that I won't be judged.
Mm-hmm. And then a time yet for 100 indecisions and for 100 visions and revisions.
Yes.
So someone who's really changing themselves and also maybe changing the way they see things over and over again.
Mm-hmm. And we get this idea that I've got a sense of urgency, but I'll forget it. There's going to be time. It's stalling for time. It's that insecurity. It's that self-doubt. Why put myself out there? There's time to rethink this. There's time. And it's like this kind of insecurity, stalling for time.
Yeah, he even says time for you and time for me. He doesn't say time for you and me. It sounds like they're kind of like taking their own time, being separated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good. There are allusions. There are literary allusions throughout Prufrock, and here you get a little bit of Ecclesiastes. A time to be born, a time to die, a time, right? So this is a direct allusion to that, right? There's going to be time for all these things in our life, and so why rush things, right?
Without looking at the poem too largely, I thought this was more of a grounded stanza. This was more relatable when it comes to when he's talking about the universe in the later stanza, and when he talks about Hamlet and the mermaids.
Mm-hmm.
This was much more like everyday man can kind of relate with this, and then he gets kind of even more introspective and deeper with his thoughts.
There are some sections that are dense, and that maybe if you don't understand the allusions, you feel like something's going over your head. And here, Nick is saying, right, it's real easy for me to understand this, to walk my way through this, right? So what's the picture we have of Prufrock up to this point? What is he like? Closed off.
Not sounding like someone you'd want to be in a loving relationship with.
Yeah, he sounds like it would be hard to be around.
A very self-pitying, not pitying, but
Conscious.
Very
very
self-conscious.
self-conscious person.
In the room, the women come and go, talking about Michelangelo. So we get that again, too.
And it's almost mocking every time he says that.
Mhm.
It kind of has that tone.
You get the sense that he doesn't want to be a part of that group.
Yeah.
Right? And indeed, there will be time. So here we come back to that refrain. To wonder, do I dare? And do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. They will say, how his hair is growing thin. My morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and legs are thin. Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. For I have known them all already, known them all, have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices dying with the dying fall beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I presume?
This part goes back to him being very self-conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Like saying he's very aware of like how he's walking and how he looks and the bald spot in his hair and like even how other people are like thinking about him. He's just very like again, it's not very love songy. He's not being romantic about his image of himself, his self-image. It's kind of like, oh, I'm too skinny, my clothes aren't right, I'm kind of getting bald, and he's just very like aware, like negatively aware of himself.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Right. I'm going to be judged. Like you said, I'm balding. He's even looking how the clothes fit on his body and how people will kind of dissect and pull him apart. And he says, and indeed there will be time to wonder, do I dare? And do I dare? What do you get from that? Do I dare? So a lot of this seems to be about him wanting to do something, like something that he wants to risk, but at the same time he is so afraid of any kind of risk, and he keeps walking it back.
He's overthinking a lot, especially like, and not just even in the first part where he's imagining how everyone like thinks of him, but it's like in a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse where I've known them all already. So it's like he's already thought about all these things.
Right.
He's still indecisive about everything.
Like he's thought of every different opportunity and every different pathway that the night could go, and what like again like what people are thinking about him.
That's right.
It definitely sounds like a guy that's like, oh, should I make that move on that pretty lady over
Yeah.
there? And someone
Yeah.
who's really
Nah, I don't
yeah,
want
he's
to.
just going for everything.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, and then-
There's time.
And then okay, well you know.
Like he's walking up
Nah, I
and
should
he
do
goes
it. You
away.
know, just like.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like when I was a kid picking up the phone, trying to call her. My heart would beat, and then no, forget it. No, forget it. No, should I proclaim my love to her? Do I dare? Do I dare? No, screw it. I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not gonna do it. So there's a lot of that anxiety that we get, right? So again, pay attention to like where he wants to connect, but he also doesn't, right? What about this line? I have known the evenings, mornings, and afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. What do you think about that line?
He's making his life seem very small. Yeah, I guess small. He's kind of demeaning, making it very.
It's routine and articulate.
Mm-hmm.
Because
But
like
he has
measuring
that
out with coffee spoons, you imagine someone just like every morning routinely waking up and dipping a spoonful of sugar into their coffee.
Right.
Something like that, yeah.
So something kind of routine. It feels like something kind of boring because it's so routine.
And not a lot of impact.
Right, and not a lot of impact. And the idea that I know them all already is a reason not to take that risk. But measuring out my life in coffee spoons, that idea that I can remember every little trivial thing, and my life doesn't have much of an impact. And right, I mean, it's very. That's one of my favorite lines. Okay. And I have known the eyes already. Arissa, you want to do that?
And I have known the eyes already, known them all, the eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase. And when I am formulated, sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall, then how should I begin to spit out all the but ends of my days and ways? And how should I presume?
Okay. So what do you get from this section?
Dissections.
Bug dissections.
Yeah.
Bug dissections.
Like when you're in seventh grade, you pin all the bugs.
My sister used to do that.
Yeah.
Go out into she came back with all these bugs that she would pin to like a
Pinboard or
board.
styrofoam.
Yeah.
He's making himself sound even smaller compared to someone.
Yeah.
We don't really know who yet. He's comparing himself, or not comparing himself, but he's just sprawling on a pin. It's very small. He gets put on the wall.
Right, like he's a specimen.
Yeah. And then that kind of also relates back to the third line where he's the patient, or like a patient.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
It also ends with, and how should I presume, much like the stanza before, so how should
So start paying attention to the repetition that's in here. We have the repeated chorus of "In the rooms the women come and go," but we also have "Do I dare," "Time," and what's the one you just pointed out?
and how should I presume?
And "How shall I presume?" So think about the impact of that repetition in this piece. There's that word, "fix you," right? The eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase. Like I take you in and I say, I know everything you're about, right? Oh, you think you're this. I have
Figured you out.
I've got you figured out, right? And so that idea of feeling like I put myself out there and someone looks at me and says, I know exactly who you are, pal, right? They fix you.
It's just that little bug.
Right.
It's not very mysterious, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Right. Not very mysterious at all. And we get that later where he talks about like being blown up like on an X-ray with that everybody can see. Right. And I have known the arms already, known them all. Arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight, downed with light brown hair. Right from afar, the arms look one way, but under closer inspection, I can see every little brown hair on the arm. What do you think that's saying? So again, you get that sexuality, that idea of human contact, right? But also maybe looking at those little brown hairs as something that physically turns him off, right? From afar, you look one way, but underneath the lamplight, I look at you and I see every little thing.
Yeah, like being like you said, like sensual, like being intimate with somebody and being so close that you can see their hair on their arm, and like a lamplight is something that's, I think, like something that's like someone's bedroom or something like that. And he said he's known them all, like he's probably been in the same situation a whole bunch of times, and every single time he's probably hit like just a point where he's just like, I can't do this or something like that. Like he kind of backs away.
Right, he finds reasons, maybe looking for any little imperfection to back away from it. Right? Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? What do you think?
Is that what turned him off? Is that what slowed his advance forward instead of him continuing to talk to that girl?
Perfume from the dress feels very sensual. And it feels to me like he is someone who is full of lust throughout this poem.
But frustrated.
But frustrated, That's right. Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl, and should I then presume, and how should I begin? Right? You get the sense of someone who is in a standstill, someone who is experiencing a type of paralysis. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Again, like frustrated, like he doesn't know. Like he ends it with how should I begin? Like he doesn't know how to start and how to start his advancements to this woman that he sees across the room, because he's been in that situation where he's gotten close to them and he doesn't like the hair on their skin, and like he doesn't know what, like he says that makes him so digressed. Like he doesn't know what turns him off, but it's something that does, and he's just frustrated. Like he doesn't know how to handle the situation of being intimate with somebody.
Right. Someone take on the next stanza. Shall I say?
Shall I say, I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lowly men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows. I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas.
Let's stop there for a second. What do you hear repeated in this stanza? You got the smoke again.
A lot of S's.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sleeves, smoke,
Streets.
Is there anything you're getting from those S's? Or it's just an observation?
I don't know. I didn't really look too deep into that.
Okay.
It just kind of sounds like that's just the way he wanted to have that stanza sound. The S's make it flow nicely.
Remember the streets that we had at the very beginning of the poem? Half deserted, running on like a tedious argument. So here we're building upon that feeling, those feelings of like loneliness and isolation and kind of despair. Those lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out the windows.
He's experienced this before. This feeling. He says, "I've gone at dusk through these narrow streets." So it's obviously a feeling that he's felt before.
Right. That's right.
And I think that, like you said, he talked about the streets before. That was almost like inviting the person he's with, or the person he's telling this to, like on his journey. So he's going through the streets that he's already been down, and he's continuing this journey through these streets.
And notice he's projecting loneliness onto these men.
Yeah.
That might tell you something about himself. Does that make sense? Now, what about, I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floor of silent seas.
Should have been a little crab.
A crab.
Or I was thinking of like a rat, like on a ship or something like that.
Oh, but do rats have claws?
No.
Ooh.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
I don't want to be around a rat with claws.
Alright.
Okay, but scuttling. So if you're a crab, well, first of all, it's not even saying crab. It's just breaking it down to these pair of ragged claws. Do crabs go forward, backwards?
Side to side, right?
Here they go side, right? Scuttling sideways across these seas. What does this tell you about Prufrock?
He's not
That
advancing.
he's not advanced.
But nor is he backing up either.
Mhm.
He's just going side to side, like earlier, like where he said he's like like when we talked about how he's made like he's thought about every single like pathway.
Mhm.
He's going to like different like different viewpoints, I guess, of the situation, like going side to side.
I almost think of like, I want to say it's a hermit crab, or like what are those crabs like?
Yeah.
They'll jump out of their shell and we'll find a new shell,
Uh-huh.
stick in that
Oh,
shell,
hermit
and then like
crabs.
walk around that shell, and then we'll pop out of that one and find a new one after a couple months. You know,
Interesting.
Like-
Yeah,
Yeah, hermit
kind of think
crabs.
about that.
good. Bringing some crab expertise into the hissy. But that's good, because I didn't know that that's how. Yeah.
Kind of like indecisive again. Kind of thinking about that kind of crab. Something that's
Good.
jumping around, you know.
It isn't like the little house that it's in today, most of another
Yes.
one.
Change.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay. That's helpful for me. Okay, and the afternoons. Haley, you want to take this one?
In
In the afternoons, the evenings, sleep so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or lingers. Stretched on the floor, here beside you and me, should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head grown slightly bald, throbbing upon a cloud, don't fear minutes.
Yeah, keep going.
I am no prophet, and here's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my creation's flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my throat and sink, and in short I was afraid.
Good. So we're getting back to that idea of fear, right? Anything surface for you in this section? Again, that idea of like how do I begin to put myself forward, right? We get that same idea with stretched on the floor here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis?
Yeah, like to like he's saying like should like I guess force the moment to the big huge thing that he's been leading up to this whole time. But the next one is but though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, like he doesn't know what to do or how he should handle it, and he's like cried about it, and he's trying to figure it out by praying and but cried about it some more. Like he has no idea what to do and how to handle the situation that he keeps putting himself into.
Right. And then we get this John the Baptist reference with the head upon the platter. But again, that head, again, it's bald. He's paying attention to the baldness, thinking about that. I am no prophet, right? I'm not this kind of figure. I'm not a bold. What do you think of with a prophet? I am no prophet. Maybe someone who's very bold, someone who's a leader, someone who takes kind of center stage, not stage, but someone who takes on a central role in the lives of others. People look up to that person and listen to that person. That's not me.
I gathered when he said, I am no prophet, and then he continues to talk about kind of like his future. I saw that there was some that didn't have a lot of foresight, but then he talks about like, but I know, he's like, I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat snicker. So he has seen things, he knows that things are looming, but he's not a prophet about it.
That's
He's not someone who can say it. Much else.
And that snickering eternal footman brings you back to those feelings about hell that we started with.
Is footman, is that supposed to be
Like soldiers. Because when I think of footman, I think of like just like the basic like soldiers, like one of the.
And here we have he's the footman who holds the coat, but he's snickering, right?
So
And
just a foot soldier that he has the power to laugh over him, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
it's open to interpretation here. Right? And in short, I was afraid. Okay, I think of like a footman also like an attendant,
Yeah.
If he's holding a coat.
but we can look up footmen.
Can I do that right now?
Sure.
I almost think of someone at like a fancier party that like,
Well,
like
the
the
jacket,
coat
you
room
did say,
almost.
Yeah.
And like if he's, I think of like those type of people like on their downtime they rifle through your pockets and they kind of like figure out like what kind of person you are and how much money you have. And if he's snickering, then he probably knows like he
We
doesn't.
also know, we also know that like before he's talking about how his clothes, he wears his clothes, but the people mock him because he's so skinny. He probably looks really baggy, like his clothes might look really baggy. So it's like someone's making fun of him for how he dresses.
Yeah.
What I love about these sessions is they help me think about this poem in different ways that I've never thought about before, and I've read this so many different times. So thank you both. Did you look it up?
Yeah, so as soon as I typed in Eternal Footman,
Mm-hmm.
and I went straight to the proof rock.
Of course.
And it's saying that it's an illusion, but it's actually analyzing
Okay,
exactly
so
what it's on.
we'll work on that later. Just to speed us along through the poem.
Okay, a footman was like a butler who would help
Uh-huh.
rich people do things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we got it.
Right. So that's what we said, like an attendant. And that goes back to the women coming and going, talking of Michelangelo. There's a lot having to do with class in this poem. You get a sense like those women are of some like an upper class,
Yeah.
whereas the people in the streets, those lonely men with the pipes, that doesn't sound upper class.
He's getting
So
too-
there again is a source of anxiety, right? Like not feeling like you don't fit in.
he doesn't fit in with either of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also thinking like they're kind of trivial, superficial. That's a way of not having to deal with them. All the defense mechanisms. And would it have been worth it after all? After the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me? Would it have all been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one settling a pillow by her head should say, that is not what I meant at all, that is not it at all. So there's also the fear that I'm going to put something out there and people are going to form some kind of judgment. And can I take it back? Like, that's not what I meant. No,
Yeah,
that's not what I meant at all. Right? But once it's out there, people can fix you. Right? How do you bring it back after you've rolled towards some overwhelming question?
I think that kind of goes back to like the women come and go and talk about Michelangelo. Like they're like out gossiping, and he's afraid that if he puts himself out there, that they're gonna gossip about him and like his, say, like I guess performance.
His insecurities.
Yeah, all his insecurities, and
they're going to talk to each other.
Yeah. and he's gonna catch. He's afraid that he's gonna catch wind of it. And he's like, no, that's not like who I am, and that's not who I try to present myself to be. Like what you guys are saying is wrong. And, like again, very insecure about what people are thinking about him.
Right. So to me, like this personally resonates for me, right? This feeling like this fear of putting yourself out there because once you do, someone will get an impression of you and you want to take back that impression and that fear. Well, that's already out there and people have made judgments about me. And so I'll just stay in my little apartment all day.
Yeah.
Right?
You'll stay in
Yeah.
your October when it's nice and cozy. You'll stay in your shelf. The silent sea.
I think this speaks to a lot of the insecurities and neurosis that a lot of us feel.
Mhm.
Like I think a lot of us are kind of cut from the same neurotic cloth and maybe can identify with some of these feelings. Not to the level of proof rock where we become so paralyzed by our insecurities maybe. But I think in many ways this speaks to readers of every age,
Yeah.
every generation. And would it have been worthwhile? And so there's that, keeps coming back to that. Is this going to be worth it? Is it going to be worthwhile? Would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile after the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this and so much more? It is impossible to say just what I mean, but as if a magic lantern through the nerves in patterns on a screen, would it have been worthwhile if one settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl and turning toward the window should say, that is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all. So again, you get the repetition. That is not it at all. That's not what I meant at all. And so look through the poetry and see, like, if you see these phrases keep surfacing, there's probably a reason for it. But here, earlier we got Prufrock sprawled like a pin on the wall, like a specimen on a pin on the wall where everyone can see him.
His nerves now are getting projected.
And now, yeah, his nerves are projected. And I can imagine it like on a huge screen and everybody can see it, right? Like this one, right? There are all my nerves for everyone to see. That feeling of vulnerability, and like we're all diagnosing him, right? And fixing him with a diagnosis.
Or like what you said, like he wants to take it back. Like he's afraid that if he puts it out there, he's not going to be able to take it back, or if people are even going to interpret it the way he wants to. Like in the beginning of the stanza, he says, "And it would be, and would it have been worth it at all? Like if he does put himself out there, will people understand what he's trying to say or the type of person he is? And if they don't, then that's not what he means at all. Like he just wants to take it back."
And then it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
And then it would not have been worth it, right? No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. Am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt an easy tool, differential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious, and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times indeed almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool. We get some Shakespeare analogy here, right? I am not Prince Hamlet. I'm not the main character of this play that everything revolves around, which brings us back to what earlier thing, I am no prophet, right? I'm not Prince Hamlet.
Not the center.
Yeah, he's saying he's more of the side. Like he's the person who advises what the prince to do.
An attendant.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the very end, we get being the fool, right?
I think this is the first time he's kind of given himself a little bit of credit.
Yeah, how so?
It just because he says, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt, an easy tool, differential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious, and meticulous. So, I mean, politic, cautious, and meticulous, those could be positive things.
Yeah.
They could be.
And he's saying that he could start a scene and he could advise the prince.
And he's glad to be abused. Like he's like finally being like you said, he's finally being positive about himself in this short stanza.
I also think of a character who kind of functions in the play. Like I function to serve a role, but there's not that kind of depth.
More of a
to
catalyst
that.
than anything else.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
That comes back to him talking about the women, talking about Michelangelo, and then the men with shirt sleeves leaning out the windows. So he's in between those two because he doesn't identify with ritzy women, and he also doesn't identify with the super low men, the lonely men. So he's kind of in that weird.
Do you think he
middle
doesn't identify with those lonely men?
I mean, from that stanza, it sounded like he was someone
distancing
who
himself?
was walking past it.
Okay.
But I don't know. He does sound like quite the lonely person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel
Go
like,
ahead.
yeah, full of sentence, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse. Like he is kind of in that role in that position to be with the higher class, but then like he's out of touch almost. Like he's back with those like.
Well, and and people will see him as the fool, right? I grow old. I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing, each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back when the wind blows the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea by sea girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown. So that's the end of our poem, but let's go through this. Do we get that self-consciousness again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
He's feeling very old in this last part, like very self-conscious about his age. Like he grows old, and like it seems what he's talking about is what old people do, like roll the bottoms of their trousers up because they're kind of getting the shrinking as you get older, and putting his hair behind his head to cover up the bald spot, and being self-conscious about his legs, so he wears like pants even to the beach.
Right. And so what's the role of the mermaids in here? Where is it? I have heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. So who are the sirens in mythology?
They lure men to their deaths by singing
Right.
to them.
So the sirens will sing to you, lure you in, and lead you to your death.
They will never go home from the Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
From the Odyssey.
So
Yeah.
you would never want to, you would want to resist that lure, that temptation.
It's like
Right.
they don't even want to sing to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
you
sad.
don't.
That's sad. He
Yeah,
feels
so old and ugly.
ugly, so old and ugly. They
They
didn't.
don't
It's like, no, they
care
wouldn't
about-
even.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
sirens don't even want it.
So here, I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back. So you got the, when the wind blows the water white and black, we have lingered in the chambers of the sea by sea girls wreathed with seaweed, red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown. So with the sirens, they lure you in, and they're the ones who kill you, who bring you to your death, who make you drown. Here it's
Humans.
the opposite. Within the fantasy world of the sirens, you can stay there, right? But it's the human voices that make him drown. What do you think about that last line?
It's the judgmental stuff. The people he was afraid of judging him, that he judges, are the ones that are going to be they're going to cause his demise.
Yeah. Yeah, like kill him.
It's their judgment that will doom him, right? It's not the sirens that are dangerous, it's the humans that are dangerous. And it's almost like he's in that fantasy until the humans' voices kind of break that spell, and then he drowns, right?
I like that.
So what I want to do real quick is I want to bring us back to that little PowerPoint thing we had. Oops. Where is it? And I just want us to play with themes that we see in this poem. Oops. Okay. So what kinds of things do you see going on in this poem?
He's very self-conscious.
Okay, so it's a poem about self-consciousness. You see that throughout the poem?
Yeah.
Beginning, middle, and end.
What
Isolation, maybe.
It's about isolation, loneliness. What else? Haley, do you see anything?
I think the judgment.
A fear of judgment. Oh, I misspelled judgment. I think there's like that.
Yeah.
Being fixed. Fixed, of course, could take on a couple meanings too. What else do you see in here?
Exposure.
Exposure, vulnerability,
Indecisiveness.
indecisiveness, right? What else? Ideas that you see woven throughout the text. Aging,
Yeah.
Aging, yeah.
Fear.
fear,
Not hesitation. Where you refrain from doing something out of fear. I'm trying to think.
inactivity,
Yeah.
paralysis.
I'm still thinking of that.
Are you thinking
I'm in
of?
deep thought right now.
That's okay.
I'm
Like
trying to think of what
like
you're thinking of, too.
agoraphobia, like someone who's afraid of going out.
No, it's someone who won't do something because they're afraid of the outcome. Pretty much hesitant, I guess.
So
Social-
fear of
social
consequences.
Yeah, like social anxiety.
Social
Yeah.
anxiety
Yeah.
is throughout this. Or how did I just spell it?
Like
Whatever.
premeditative, kind of.
Mhm. They're very hesitant. Yes.
Planning, a lot of planning and pre-planning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Premeditative.
In his own head,
Yeah. Overthinking.
overthinking.
As you write these down, and so this is a love story or a love song.
Uh-huh.
These are kind of all emotions you feel. when you're in love with someone.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
there's like the negative. There's like the negative side.
I was kind of think of like belonging, knowing where you belong, because like he kind of mentions the men in the white shirts and the upper class, and it's like he kind of plays with being a part of both of them, but not
Uh-huh.
really being part of both of them.
Insider, outsider status,
Yeah.
right? Do I belong in this group? Do I not belong in this group?
Mhm.
There's also a lot about superficiality
Like his hair and his clothes and stuff like that.
mhm, and the brown hair on the arms.
Yeah.
There's also a lot about lust
Mm-hmm.
and yearning.
And intimacy.
Oops, can't spell today. Yearning, intimacy. Anything else? Hell.
Yeah, there's another biblical reference too with Lazarus, correct? Yeah.
Mhm.
The Lazarus.
Hell, right, and the idea of coming back from the dead, like this is to that kind of importance, where you have to come back from the dead.
Like being socially dead and coming back to go to like a
Okay,
party or something.
social deadness, something like that. That's
Yeah.
not a social
Deadness.
deadness.
Social
Social
dead.
death of
You can do
deadness.
um,
Hello. Oh, dead.
I'm trying to think of the
I'm gonna just go socially
Dash.
dead because that's what you said, and social deadness does not sound right. What else?
Oh, dead.
That's right. What else?
it's the whole poem's very introspective. It's all about himself, the way he views himself, and the way he views other people viewing him.
Being
Right.
an introvert.
Introvert. Desire. I guess that goes with yearning and all that.
Yeah.
So
And more.
And more.
I feel like it's almost kind of like he's an unreliable narrator
Mhm.
because as he's talking, he's thinking about what people could think about him. You know, he's like overthinking. He's imagining what
Right.
how other people see him. So it's like, do people really see him like that though? Like,
Right. I think though that we figure out pretty quickly that the way that he sees himself and how he colors the world with his insecurities.
yeah.
Right? Like that comes across pretty quickly. So I'm gonna save this. Let me put this down. But any other thoughts before we finish? Was this helpful?
Yeah.
Hopefully it was
Yeah.
helpful.
It's
Yes.
a lot of stuff.
I'm gonna be able to write good responses.
And,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping here, wait, where is everybody? I'm gonna stop sharing this. Oops. So I'm hoping that this is gonna help you guys. This is the very first time we use this tool. My back was to you for most of the time. I apologize for that. I'm not exactly knowing where to look in the camera, but we'll figure this out. We'll keep improving upon this. But if we archive it and you like it, do you think you would want to keep doing this?
Oh
I
yeah.
kind of like this. Yeah.
Right. So
It's
for
very
anyone who's not here, now this is going to get archived on our site, and so you can go back to it and you've got this discussion. What I want to do, what I would like to cover, I'd like to do Birches and maybe some of the Robert Frost poetry, and maybe even go back to some of the poems from some of the short stories from last week. But if you like it, let us know, let me know, and we'll try to keep doing these. Okay? So meanwhile, we are going to stop the broadcast. You want to say bye to it?
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. We'll see